Today is the first day of Chol Hamoed, so it's obviously very appropriate to talk about Sukkot. Now, if you ask the average person, what is Sukkot all about? You know, most people don't know. We know what the mitzvot are, right? You have to sit in a sukkah, right? And besides sitting in a sukkah, through the four species, right? Lulav and esrog and so on. When you think about it, what really is the event that Sukkot corresponds to? What is it really, you know? Because basically every Jewish holiday corresponds to some event in Jewish history. You know, usually it's when the Jews were in the desert. So the question is, what does it correspond to really, you see? Now, the Chazal speak about it, our rabbis, and they say, and this seems to be the main accepted view, it corresponds to the return of the clouds of glory, Anoni HaKoveh, that completely surrounded the Jewish people in the desert. And could you imagine clouds above them, below, and on all sides? 6 clouds, imagine? And they actually accompanied the Jews wherever they went. And they were incredible clouds. We're not talking here about water vapor. You know, they protected the Jews. You know, they would destroy any type of animal. You couldn't penetrate those clouds. So really, they were tremendous protection. Okay, so Sukkot represents that. That's like, now what? I mean, it's vague, really. So for that, we should have the whole Sukkot? Because of the return of the clouds of glory? You know, I think Sukkot is basically the least understood holiday, Yom Tov, of Jews, that there is. Everything else we have a clear understanding. They have, Mitzrayim, Egypt, they left Egypt, and then Shavuos, where they received the Torah. You know, Rosh Hashanah is judgment, the Kippur is Kapora, forgiveness. Sukkot, clouds return. So that's the question. And that's what I want to answer. What really is what's called the Pnimiyut? What is the inner meaning of Sukkot? Why do we have Sukkot, really? From a different level of understanding, you see. So that's what I want to do. Therefore, we can begin by, going through some of the mitzvot of Sukkot. One mitzvah, obviously, is the sukkah itself. You have to sit in a sukkah. Okay. What does that mean? You have to go out of your house into this makeshift house. You want to call it a hut, a bungalow, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, right? So this is the mitzvah of sukkah. Why? Then the second one is the 4 species, right? You're supposed to take a lulav and an esrog, and hadassim and arobas. This is all biblically commanded in our Torah. And wave it, right? And where do you wave it? In Hallel. Well, I know Ashkenazim do that. I imagine Sfardim do that also. You wave it in Hallel. But not only you wave it, but you wave it to all the 4 corners of the compass. Right, left, front, back, up, down. You see? Why? What is that supposed to mean, really? Then you have other ideas or halachot that take place in Sukkot. We say Hoshana, right? As we say it too, Hoshana, Leman Chaboreinu. Why? Hoshana means save us. You see? Because you are our God, and so on. Why would we say Hoshana on Sukkot? We don't say it on Pesach or Shavuos. So what's the idea of Hoshana? You see? And besides that, there's a mitzvah of simcha, joy, It says in the Torah, joy, usmachtem b'chagecho, 3 times, right? It says, and you will be joyful 3 times in the Torah. Well, you're supposed to be joyful in every holiday, right? So what is special about Sukkot that you're supposed to be joyful? That is the question. Okay? Seems to be a special command of joy on Sukkot. So you have that question, you know. Then you have other mitzvot. For instance, the Ushpizim. There are 7 guests that we invite in every day, right? We have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Moshe and Aaron, right? And then Yosef and David. There's 7. So the question is why? Like, what is that all about, you know? It's nice if they show up, you know? And believe it or not, in some places they do show up. But you have to be a tremendous tzaddik to see them, you know? But there are people who actually put away a chair for them, right? So on. So that's good. That's the closest thing to get them to come. Yeah, exactly. The question is, what's the meaning of this? It's a nice gesture, right? But what's the meaning of this? Then there's what's called, you're supposed to sacrifice each day of the 7 days. You bring sacrifices. The first day is 13, then 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, and 7. Each day you bring sacrifices in the Beit HaMikdash. The total of them is 70. You add 12, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. If you add them up, there are 70. Why would we offer 70 oxen, Purim, what they are, in the Beit HaMikdash? Now, what's the meaning of that? You know? And then there's what's called the Nisach HaMayim, where you pour water, the libations, which is a tremendous simcha. That the simchas beis Shueva that we do really comes from the temple where they poured water, and that was incredible joy, tremendous joy. They used to take water and pour it in one of the corners of the Mizbeach, of the altar. And they had tremendous simcha. In fact, the Gemara says that whoever did not see the joy of that time has never seen joy in their lives. The question is why? What does that mean? So what do we begin to see? That there are many mitzvot that they're there, but like, what does it have to do with Sukkah and the 4 species and so on? You see? And then we know that there is a Shmini Atzeres. It's the 8th day. By us, it's the 8th and 9th. It's the 8th day. And Shmini Atzeres, which is the 8th day of the holiday, is not Sukkot. It's not Sukkot. It's a separate holiday, and that's why you have to make a Shechionu all over again on Shmini Atzeres. Separate holiday. So the question is why? And of course, the famous thing that goes on in Shmini Atzeres is Simchat Torah. I mean, that's the main, right? But why? I would imagine that Simchat Torah should be on Shavuot. That's when they gave the Torah, right? So if that's the case, that's when we should have the Simcha of receiving the Torah. What does that have to do with Sukkot? You see? It's true that you begin to read the Torah all over again. But that could have started on Shavuot. That can't be the reason. So what does Simchat Torah have to do with Sukkot? So all these questions that you really have and so on. So therefore the question is, what does all this have to do with Sukkot really? And the reason why they all look separate, all these mitzvot, because we don't really know, not yet anyway, till after the Shiur. Mm-hmm. If you ask anybody, what is the connection between all this? They won't know. I would venture to say 98% of the Jewish people have no idea, other than the one I mentioned, why you have Sukkot. And even then, Why all these mitzvot? See? But the truth is that all of this can be understood with one theme. That's the way I always do things. To organize it into one idea, like a wheel where you have a hub and all the spokes come out of the hub. That's really the only way to learn and so on, So I'm going to try to demonstrate that this style, this method of learning in this way is true of Sukkot. So when you leave here, you will understand what Sukkot really is and why there is such an incredible joy. There was all that puzzled expressions on your face. Hopefully will change and you'll have this, what's called eureka moment. Aha! Right? It's called the aha moment, right? And you'll understand. It's in many ways I always consider that it's tragic that Jews are not really, many of them, most of them actually, they're not in contact really with the inner depth of Judaism. They'll know the halachot, they'll study it and so on. When you ask somebody, what does all this mean? With all the questions that I've asked, they don't know. That's obviously what I always try to do. You begin to realize the profound depth of Judaism once you see what is going on. Just like I've done with current events. It's a whole different current events. It's not current events. It's spiritual events. It's messianic events, which you finally understand, because what unites all the events, no matter what it is, right, is that this is part of the divine plan of creation. That's what unites all of this. So as such, you have to understand what is Sukkot all about. See, you should know this is a very rare Shiur, very rare. You don't realize that you'll have information that hardly anybody really has, which is enormously tragic. You want? Test me. Just go over to anybody and ask me, can you tell me what in the world all this is and how they're all connected? I don't know. Okay. So how do we really begin to understand all this? You have to understand this. I once mentioned, actually, now we begin to see how it really comes to fore on Sukkot. All the acts of God that He does, and of course there are infinite amount of acts, really all of the acts of God can be categorized under 3 categories. That's it. Interesting, right? They could actually categorize everything under 3 acts that He does. See? I'm going to tell you what those 3 acts are. The first act is called the Anhogas HaKiyum. It is the actions that God does in order to fulfill the purpose of creation. What does that mean, to fulfill the purpose of creation? We know that God decided, we don't know why, that He wants to create a situation where mankind, especially the Jewish people, will have infinite bliss eternally. Wow, that's great. And since God clearly is eternal, no problem. So we cannot imagine what that is. Could you imagine existing forever? Forever. I mean, even after 100 trillion years, that's like a drop in the bucket compared to what's left, which is infinity. You can't. And not only that, but during those times, right, you actually are receiving or experiencing infinite bliss. What a party. Imagine. God decided He wants to do that. We don't know why, but that's what He wants to do. No problem. As I say in English, bring it on. Right? But He made this decision. He said that I don't want to give it away. I want people to work for it. You need to earn this. That once explained a couple of 2 months ago, whatever, concept of bread of shame and so on. But without that, notwithstanding that, God decided that he wants to do this with a condition. The condition is you need to earn this state. It won't happen for free. Now, obviously, that changed everything because it meant that God had to create a situation called this world, Olam Hazeh, where you could do whatever he wants. Then if you did the job, right, then you get this other world which goes on forever, obviously. And of course, there are all kinds of problems with that because then you're risking it. What happens if you don't do the job? Then you don't get it. So it's obviously associated with tremendous risk, or whatever it is. So therefore, what God had to do is create a situation, right, that has a deficiency. And then he can point to you and say, remove that deficiency. Because if there's no deficiency, there's nothing to do, obviously, right? So what God did is he created this world, Olam Hazeh. And this world has a tremendous deficiency. What is that? The deficiency is that God removed himself from this reality. He's gone. Now, he's not really gone. He just doesn't allow you to see him. That's really what it is. It's like if you have eyeglasses, right, and I don't want you to see me, right, what I do, right, is go over to your glasses and paint it red. You're not going to see me, although I'm still here. That's what God did. He painted our eyeglasses red, and we can't see anything. And what's the tekel? So that's the deficiency. It's called hester, concealment. That's the deficiency of this world. What God wants is to do what? To undo that and to bring him back. Yeah, he wants to come back. You see? So he says to the Jew, you need to bring me back. There you are. That's the job. That's the task. You see? I'm gone. So that's what's called the chisaron, the deficiency. And I want you to bring me back. And when you bring me back, right, you will experience me. And that's infinite bliss. That's it. So it's really, in many ways, true cause and effect. If you do the job, you get to experience God. You don't do the job, you get to experience nobody. You see? Now, obviously, it's far more complicated than this. I'm leaving all of that stuff out, so on. But this is the gist of the entire, what's called, experiment. That's what he did. Now, but in order to do that, God had to create everything. That means he created the entire universe. All 13.7 billion light years worth. He created it in an instant. It's amazing, right? And not only that, he also created, right, the spiritual worlds. And there are realities beyond ours that we don't see. There's the reality of the angels. You see? Many other realities called olamas. Realities, they exist too. Now, what God wants us to do, basically, you see, is this. We need to somehow recognize that there is a reality beyond the physical, which is the spiritual reality. And as part of that spiritual reality, it is God. That's really what he wants. In some way, you have to turn your attention away from the physical and not be fooled that there's a reality beyond, that is the real reality, or I should say, the essential reality, and that's the reality that we're going to experience for eternity, and so on. Now, obviously, there's much more. I'm cutting it very, very simple, what the overall idea is, without any complications. Okay? Now, therefore, we now can understand the actions of God, the first category. It's called Anhogas Hakiyum, the actions that God takes to fulfill the purpose, which is a situation that has a deficiency that we are commanded to do. And as a result of that, we will now have another reality called the reality of God. Okay? Second set of actions. Well, if we have to do a job, guess what? God has to look at us and he has to see, are we doing the job? That's called Mishpoch Judgment. So God waits for the acts of man. Specifically, he waits for the acts, basically, of the Jews. Because they're the ones who are commanded to do this. The non-Jews, believe it or not, their purpose lies in helping the Jews do this job. They don't even realize this. When a goy helps a Jew do the tikkun is to repair or rectify, that's the job, then he is unbelievably rewarded. But what do we see today? Not only do they not help the Jew, they kill you, or they destroy you, right? Or they impede you. I mean, it's just beyond belief. They don't realize the whole merit of these people is only insofar as to help the Jews bring God back. That's it. You know? It's astounding when you think about that. And the Gemara, the Chazal, say that. It says that if the Goyim would realize that when they assist the Jews to do the tikkun, that is their merit. That's what gets them to survive in the future world. Because they also get that, not like the Jew. But if they help the Jew, that's what gives them right. And if the Goyim realize that, then it says that they would appoint 2 muscle-bound guys who would stand over every Jew and force them to do the mitzvah.
How would they know that?
I'm just saying, they don't know. You see?
But it's a shame that they don't know. Don't you wish that?
But I'll tell you something interesting. Okay? I will answer your question. What's the greatest book ever written in terms of the most spread out work? That's it. You know how many people have read the Bible? Hundreds and hundreds of millions. What does it say in the Bible? Doesn't it talk about God and the Jews? That you are my people forever? That you have to do the commandments? You have to be righteous? You have to be holy? They read it. So where are these jokers? It's not that they don't know. They don't care. You see, many of them don't care, or they've been what's called obfuscated by other religions, which are nonsense. You know? There's no credibility in the other religions, because almost all other religions have one guy that said, I spoke to God. Really? Prove it. Whereas we see from the Judaism that God spoke to the entire Jewish people. What a difference. But anyway, without getting into the what's called the credibility and details of that, therefore they do know it. You know, most people have read the Bible, whether you are Jewish, obviously, whether you are Christian. They call it, what do they call it? The Old Testament? You know, they all read it. And even the other people of the world. The Bible is so famous that many people have read it. Because it's an incredible book. But God speaks to a man over and over again for 40 years. What?
I'm trying so hard to screaming, tooting horn. It's a shofar. Never.
They never do this.
Never this loud. It's a shofar.
Never ever.
First he tried the music, it didn't work. So now he's now trying with this.
Yeah, that's part of the Goyim that don't want the Jews.
Exactly.
To assist the Jews, right? Called living proof, right? Anyway, you see, so what God then does is, since he made the entire reward of the future world, right? Then God had to do Mishpoch Judgment. He has to look at each Jew and see, well, is he doing what I asked him to do or not? Right? So so God waits for the Jew to act, and then he judges the Jew. Mishpoch. And that's really what Rosh Hashanah is about, right? And Kippur and so on. God judges the world. That makes sense. But here's the problem. The problem is this. Because if you leave it up to mankind to do the job of what's called tikkun, to repair the world, right? And they have free will, because that's the whole point, right? What happens if they all sin? All of them. Comes out that nobody's doing the will of God. Nobody. What's the problem? That means mankind can frustrate the will of God. God wants mankind, especially the Jewish people, to exist in a future world, right? But if everybody sins, it's not happening. So God will have done all of this for naught. God doesn't like to be frustrated, obviously. So what God did is he instituted a third series of actions. What are those actions? That's called the Anhugas HaYichud. Very important idea. It is a very mysterious Anhuga series of actions. And what it is this, that God instituted a way, we don't really know how, that even though everybody has free will, and he can do the mitzvot, because that's obviously what God wants you to do, he instituted a series of actions, right, that guarantee that all Jews will be, that the tikkun will be accomplished. Yeah. Even though we have free will. You see? Now, we don't really know how it works. Although we do know, what was that?
But then it's not free will.
Oh, no, but it is. It has to work within free will. And the major way that it works is called Yisurin, or suffering. When somebody suffers, he is actually doing the tikkun. It's not just he's being punished. The critical reason for Yisurin is that helps him repair creation, without going into how it works and so on. See? So there are three ways to do the tikkun. There's mitzvahs, commandments, tshuva, repentance. If you do the commandment and you don't do it, you sin, so you can regret that, and that's repentance. Or yisurin, or suffering. Suffering is a backup system. You see? If you didn't do the job, God has to bring suffering. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much suffering. Because the Jews have not done enough mitzvahs and repentance over the generations. That's the reason for the exile. That's the reason for all kinds of suffering, you see. And therefore God brings that. So the Anhugas HaYichud, this series of actions that ultimately will guarantee that the Jews did the tikkun, right? That's the category that includes all of that. So you have three actions that God does. Got that so far? Great. It was very simple. Not simple, really. Very clear. Now, the Anhugas HaYichud, we don't know how it works. Nobody knows how it works. The classic idea is righteous people who suffer. We don't understand why. And evil people who prosper. We see that all over the place. People who are really evil, really bad people, and they prosper. You see? This is a word of current events. Trump made a tremendous mistake. I hope he learned his lesson. You know what his mistake was? He made many mistakes. This thing destroyed him. Or I should say, booted him out. He underestimates the level of evil that people have. That's what he did. He was president. What he should have done is go after all of them. Hillary, Cuomo, all these guys. Right? Yet he didn't. Because he couldn't believe that people could be so vicious and so evil, where all their focus was on to destroy him. They're not interested in the United States. They all prevented him from doing his job because he's too busy defending himself against impeachment. That's what his mistake was. He doesn't realize how evil people are and to what extent they will go to wipe you out. That's when he made a mistake. I hope when he comes back, which I believe he will undo the mistake that he made. Not go after these people unfairly. You get the FBI and the Justice Department to do their job, which obviously they're not doing their job. You see? Okay. But that's evil, you see. So therefore, we don't know why they're successful, right? And that's, therefore, God, that's all mysterious. In fact, one of the most mysterious things of all is Rabbi Akiva. He died at 120 years old. He died in Caesarea. The great Rabbi Akiva, who has not heard of Rabbi Akiva, one of the main transmitters of the entire Torah. He died in Yom Kippur. He died under the Romans. Okay? And he died in a torturous way. They tortured him. They took a comb of iron and they scraped his back. They ripped his back off. Yeah. This is Rome. They want to kill a guy, okay. You chop his head off and he goes quickly. Why kill a guy like this? For what's the point, you know? This is mankind. You're looking at the great people of mankind. The Romans. Anyway, believe me, everybody before that was no different. And anyway, just look at the Taliban, you know, or what they did. Put people in cages and then they fill the cages up with water and watch them all drown. Well, we can't even begin to understand the evil that is in people. Whatever. So anyway, he was dying. So the Malachim, famous, they said, Zu Torah v'zu schora? This is the Torah, this is the reward? How did a guy die like this? Rabbi Akiva die like this? You know, for what? He's one of the greatest transmitters of Torah ever known. So what did God say to them? He said, quiet. If I hear another peep out of you guys, I'm going to destroy the world. That's what he said. Now to us, we don't understand what that means. Why? What do you mean destroy the world? What do you do, flexing your muscle and threatening them? Why don't you answer them? Right? That's the question. Not only why God did that, but what kind of answer is that to the Malachim? And the answer is, that is the answer. Because God said, the way Rabbi Akiva has to die is part of the Anhogas HaYichud. It's part of the system that guarantees not only he, but all the Jews will be in the future world. Now you want me to tell you why? I can't. I cannot reveal why, because if I reveal why, right, to you guys, then the Satan will also know. He's also an angel. And guess what? He doesn't want me to do this to Rabbi Akiva, because indirectly everybody now survives into the future world. Because that's what Anhogas HaYichud is. He's going to prosecute against it. So I cannot reveal why. You see, so that's what God said. If I hear another claim, I'll destroy the world, not because I want to destroy the world, because the Satan will prosecute every time I try to do something to save the world, and I won't be able to do it, so the whole world will cease to exist. It was really an answer. You see? Therefore, this type of Anhoga is concealed. We don't know how it works. But every time you see righteous people suffering, the Holocaust is a classic Anhogas HaYichud. It's astounding what happened in the Holocaust, you know? And when the Mashiach comes, all of this will be revealed. Got that? Good. We now know there are three things, right? But let me tell you something. This last Anhoga has a history. What does that mean? Who's guaranteed to survive in the future world? And the answer is that initially it was mankind. So Adam Rishon is the first man. He sins. Well, too bad. But the Anhogas HaYichud says, can't kill him. Because if you kill him, there's nobody else. So the Anhogas HaYichud, the backup plan, guarantees that he must survive and have Cain and Hevel. They sin, more mankind, chase, and so on. So the Anhogas HaYichud guarantee that somebody has to survive. And even by Noach, right? When God destroyed the world, he didn't kill everybody, right? Noach survived and his family. That's because of Anhogas HaYichud. Because somebody has to survive. Now, God decided that mankind failed in its ability to do the tikkun 2,000 years. And finally, at the end of 2,000 years, you have what's called the generation of dispersion, where they're building this tower, Migdal Babel, to war with God. So God decides that I'm now going to take away the ability to do the tikkun and give it to Avram Avinu. So God comes over to Avram Avinu and says, okay, it's your job. So Avram Avinu was very, very bright. He says to God, he said, wait a minute. Maybe they will sin and you wipe them out, just like you wiped out the generation of Noach. Because there's only a guarantee that mankind has to survive, not a nation, be anybody. See? So God said in response to that, I will now guarantee that the Jews will survive. Wow. That never happened before. See? So the Anhogas HaYichud, the backup system, the guarantee system, now fell on the Jewish people. So they must survive. See? And that's why God said you have to go to Egypt. What happens if they fail? Then then the Egyptians will afflict them. That's Anhogas HaYichud, you see? So that was great. That's what Avraham Avinu accomplished. That every Jew must survive. You see? Even if mankind disappears. Interesting. Then we go on, right? You have Abraham, you have, Egypt. And then the Jews are sitting at Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, right? And all of a sudden what they do is what? They do the sin of the golden calf. So God says, I want to wipe them out. Leave me, and I will destroy them. But wait a minute, you can't do that. You promised Avraham Avinu that the Jews must survive. Right? So how did God get out of that fix? So he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I will make you a great nation. You see? He had an out. He would take Moshe Rabbeinu, he would give him the 12 tribes, right? And the Jews would survive. But not in the original form, of the 12 tribes. Wow. You see what God did? What did Moshe Rabbeinu say? If you're going to wipe out the Jewish people, so he told God, no, I do not accept. I'm not interested in taking over. And if you wipe them out, you can erase me from your sefer. Which means the answer is no. I don't accept. Well, if that's the case, God's, I'd say, he's stuck. Because if he wipes out everybody, including Moshe, hey, you promised Avraham Avinu, and you made an agreement with him. Can't do that. So that's why God says, say it in the Kippur, Solachti, God says that to Moshe, I have forgiven, Kidvorecho, on your word. What's your words? And you refuse to become the Jewish nation. You see? God said, Solachti, I have forgiven you, Kidvorecho, according to your words, Moshe Rabbeinu. What words did Moshe Rabbeinu say? I refuse to accept. So God had no choice. He had to allow the Jews to survive. So what Moshe Rabbeinu accomplished was incredible. So God agreed that the Jews in the form of the 12 tribes that come from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they are guaranteed to survive. You see? What an incredible accomplishment.
Why does Hashem have to listen to mankind?
Hold that. So I said, I don't lose my train of thought. Okay, got that? So we now have Anhogas HaYichud that focuses not on mankind, and not even on the Jewish people, but in the form of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov's 12 tribes. So that was an unbelievable thing that Moshe Rabbeinu did. You see. Now, when the Jews did the sin of the golden calf, then the clouds of glory which protects them, and now we understand that they are the symbol of the Anhogas HaYichud, that the Jews will always be protected. So they returned after Yom Kippur. They returned on the 15th day of Tishri, which is Sukkot. Which means that the guarantee now enveloped the entire Jewish people. Isn't that interesting? That's the beginning of our understanding of Sukkot. But what that means is the following. You see, if it's God renewed his covenant with the Jews. You see, not that the original covenant was canceled, but it changed. It now changed to all Jews, from the Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Therefore, God says, since I am now renewing the covenant in this form, you now must rededicate yourself to me. You've got to sign a new contract. What's the contract? And now we begin to understand what Sukkot is. Sukkot is the holiday that the contract is renewed. You see, it's renewed from our part to do the mitzvahs, and from his part to give us the future world, to guarantee us the future world. And now we begin to understand what the mitzvahs are. Let's take a look at the Sukkah. What is the Sukkah? The Sukkah is the symbol of the guarantee. That's what we are, underneath a temporary hut, so to speak, right? Even though it's temporary, rather flimsy, right? Because God doesn't need a house to protect us. All he needs is him. So the fact that we sit in a Sukkah is our declaration that we sit under the shadow of God. That's the guarantee. You see? So when you sit in a Sukkah, you are sitting in the guarantee that you will survive and enjoy the future world. That's one. But what about the mitzvahs? Well, the lulav and esrog and the hadass and the arobos, they represent the mitzvahs. In fact, if you add up the word esrog, the matria, plus the three minim, hadass, arobos, right, and the lulav, it equals to 613. They represent the Taryag mitzvahs. So, when do we wave it? So that's what we do. So we wave it in the Hallel, because that's our job, is to praise God, to acknowledge Him in Hallel. But what do? We point to all four corners. And what do we say? That no matter where you take us, we will serve you. You see? So we wave the esrog and the lulav and so on. We will do the Taryag, the 613 commandments. And all the points, no matter where we are taken, we will always do it. And we do it in Hallel, that's when we praise God. So that's our end of the bargain. That's our signature. The lulav and esrog is our signature of our part of the deal. We have a contract, right? Now you understand why there's lulav and esrog, hadass and arobos. That's what we do. That's our statement. We will always serve you. We will do the 613 commandments. No matter where you leave us, we will say Hallel. We will always praise you. That's one clause. The Sukkah, is a clause that we agree that we will always be protected by you. You see, and I want to tell you something interesting. Today, after what Biden did in Afghanistan, everybody realized America's a paper tiger. There's nothing. Can't rely on America anymore. They abandoned their allies. They abandoned their own citizens and all the Afghanis that protected them or that worked with them. What kind of a loyalty is that? You're looking at the ultimate betrayal. That's what Biden did. He betrayed people that helped him to believe the evil of this man, you see. Utter betrayal. So we realize that the only one who we can rely on is God. So this sukkah that's so flimsy, that can be blown away, whatever, this is a greater protection, right, that will guarantee us olam haba than anything anybody in the world can offer us. It's very relevant to today's time after what happened, right? So those are the two main mitzvahs. Now we understand why there's such simcha. Because until then, God wanted to destroy all the Jews and make Moshe Rabbeinu the Jewish people. He said no. So what that means, right, is that we now know that we will survive, right? That's incredible. And that's why the Torah says simcha. That's why Sukkot is such a holiday of joy, because guess what? We are guaranteed to be in the future world, which is eternal bliss, right? Infinite bliss, eternally. I mean, what greater simcha is that? Right? What greater joy is that? And it says 3 times in the Torah, and you will be joyful. But the first joy is that we will do the tikkun. The second joy is the Messianic era. And it's all revealed, right? The third joy is the future world. Olam haba. There's no greater joy than that we will survive infinitely. I mean, can't even imagine what that means. And we're all guaranteed that. Is that incredible? You know, you can hear it, but you don't appreciate what that means. You know? Like if somebody came over to you, right, and said, I like you, I want to give you a check, gift, right? And he walks over and he writes a gift of $100 billion. Would you smile? Smile. You jump up and go right through the sukkah, right? Why? $100 billion. I mean, that's like for what? Olam haba is infinitely greater than $100 billion. You see? It's infinitely greater. We don't even know what awaits us. That reality, see? So God is right. Samachtim b'chagecha. You will rejoice because we have rewritten the contract where all of us are now guaranteed. Isn't that amazing? Now we know why we say Hoshanas. Because Hoshanas means save us because you have promised that we are all protected on Anogas HaYichud. To save us. See, so Hoshana directly confronts that promise of God that all the Jews will be protected. That's why we say Hoshanas. See, which means save us. We say it all 7 days. You see? That's why Hoshanas is in Sukkot. Because that's part of what the holiday is. That we'll all be saved. See? Why the 70 oxen? Why 70? Because the Gemara says that this corresponds to the 70 nations of the world. Why? Just a little Kabbalah. Because there are 10 spheres. There are 10 emanations of God that create all reality. But each sphere has 10 subspheres. You see? But the main ones are the 7, the lower 7. So you have 10 spheres, and they are composed of 10, but the last 7 are the main of all 10. So 7 times 10 is 70. Now, what is our job? The mitzvahs. But when we do that, we bring in the unbelievable spiritual force or light of those 70 spheres. That's the avodah. That's why there are 70 nations. Each nation has a job of one sphere. Bring down the energy or the light. But if God dismissed the non-Jews and he gave it to the Jews, what did he do? He gave them all 70 to the Jews. See? That's why you needed to have 70 neshamas, people who entered Egypt. Because Yocheved was born between the walls. She was number 70. Because each Jew represents one nation. 70 nations, 70 Jews had to go to Egypt. You see? It's fascinating. So we offer 70 Purim oxen because they represent the 70 aspects of the spheres that we took over. You see? That's why. Now what about the Ushpizin? Why do we have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov coming? Right? You know why? Because if you think about it, if this is a rededication of the Jewish people to do the mitzvahs and to be protected by God, well, who is the one who are the main principal figures? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, right? They're the ones who made the agreement with God. Moshe and Aaron, they gave the Torah, which is the instructions of God, right? And Yosef and David is Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. And they finished it all. So those 7 come because they were the principals in making the agreement. So of course they have to come to the Sukkot because it's a rededication. It's like a new contract. So they got to come to be part of the contract signing. Right? Of course they have to come. They are the major idea of what Judaism is. The ones who made the contract, the ones who instructed what to do, and then the termination, Jews do it, the 2 Mashiachim, the 2 Messiahs. See? So of course that's why we have Ushpizin. They got to be around when everybody's signing again. You see? Incredible when you understand what's going on. You see? But now, what about Shmini Atzeret? Why all of a sudden do we have a new holiday called Shmini Atzeret? The answer is You sign a contract. Who signs? Both parties. It's not unilateral. It's bilateral. Well, the first 7 days is our signature, where we say we will do the mitzvahs and so on. Shmini Atzeres is God's signature. You see, that day is God's signature. He signs on to the agreement. That's why it's not Sukkot. It's another holiday. It's his signature. You see, that's why you have Shmini Atzeres. And of course, what's his signature all about? Right? That he will give us infinite bliss. But really, what is it in the Messianic era? Is the Or Mashiach, the Messianic light. The Sefer Torah that we dance with on Simchas Torah is the Messianic light, not the Torah of Matan Torah, that God gave us a second Luchas. It's the Messianic light. And that's why the Haftarah that we read on the first day of Sukkot is Messianic. If you look at the Haftarah, it's all about Mashiach. So when we dance, we are dancing with the ultimate Torah, the Messianic Torah. You see? Not the Torah we received on Shavuos. You see? So that's why there's such incredible joy, because that Torah is incomprehensible. You see, that Torah that we received on the Messianic time and so on, And therefore the joy is just incredible. And that's why there's such unbelievable dancing. And now we understand one more thing, which is very important. At the end of time, the Gemara says the following, that all the Goyim, all the nations of the world, when the Mashiach is here, they realize the jig's up, as they say in English. Right? It's over with. So you know what they're going to say? They say, wait a minute, we also deserve reward. Why? Because we built so many things that the Jews can enjoy. And learn Torah. We built bridges, we built tunnels so they could travel. We made cars for them. So we also deserve a portion. So God says it's true that you did that, but it was only for your own purposes, to charge tolls. You never had in mind to help the Jews. And it's the kavanah, the intent that's critical. So I don't give you anything. So the Goyim say, you're right. We don't really deserve anything. Because it was just for us. It happened to be that the Jews indirectly deserved. We didn't do it for them. Of course not. But the Goyim, which is interesting, they say, you're right, but you are a God of infinite mercy. You're right. We didn't directly benefit them. We indirectly benefited them. But it's because we built it for ourselves, they benefited indirectly. Please, give us a chance. Give us one mitzvah to do. Because you got to do a mitzvah. So God says, okay, I agree. I will give you one mitzvah to perform. Right? If you do that, you will get future world also. So imagine what the weight of this, what's called the gravity of the situation. What mitzvah did he give them? Sukkah. So God said, okay, I'll give you the mitzvah Sukkah. So they all ran to build the Sukkah. It's a Gemara. This is what's going to be the end conversation. Yeah. So they all ran quickly to build Sukkahs. Imagine all the nations of the world are building a Sukkah, right? And they all went inside. You see? Because they're all hoping. We're talking about eternity. That's the deal here, right? So what's God do? He takes out the sun from its case. And all of a sudden, it shoots up to 110 degrees. Whatever that means. He took out the sun in its full-blown, midday, and all of a sudden, the Goyim are sweating like crazy, right? So what do they all do? They all walked out of the Sukkah, and as they walked out, they kicked the door open, and they walked out. Now, the question we have to ask is, why Sukkah? Could have given them some other mitzvah. You know what I'm saying? And why you take the sun out? See? Because now you all know. Because what is Sukkah? Sukkah commemorates the fact that all Jews are guaranteed to be in the future world. But the Goyim said we also want to be included in that guarantee. That no matter what we do, we also want to include the guarantee. You see? So what mitzvah is the statement that we are in the guarantee? Sukkah. Fine. So God said, do the Sukkah, and that will be your testimony that you are under the guarantee that others are yichud. But I told you, what's the major way that God administers that particular action? Suffering. So God said to the Goyim, well, you're saying that, but I want to show you, I want to test you to see if you can also suffer. Because that's the way the device works. So he took the sun out of its case, and he made them suffer. That's exactly what the Jews do to do the Hanogas HaYichud, right? He did the exact same thing. He didn't do anything different. But what the Goyim do, so the Jews do what? We take it, right? For thousands of years. The Goyim, they walked out of the sukkah, they kicked the door open, said, we're out of here. So God said, hey, you're not even doing what the Jews do, so there's no guarantee for you guys, right? So guess what? You're gone. Now we understand why he said sukkah. Because sukkah is the acknowledgement of the Hanogas HaYichud. So God said, okay, so you do it also, what the Jews do, on sukkahs. And you will be subject to the exact same process, suffering. So it's not that God wanted to be unfair. He did exactly what the Jews do. Subject them to the mechanism of Hanogas HaYichud, the guarantee. It failed. You see? So it's amazing that the Gemara actually says that this conversation is going to take place at the end of time. And I can see why. I mean, when everybody sees the Mashiach is here, and all of a sudden the Jews are the kings of the universe, I mean, that's what's going to be. Like it says in the Navi, 10 Goyim are going to grab onto the cloak of every Jew and beg him to take them to Jerusalem with him. Because that's how the Jews will be the supreme nation of all time, you see. It's almost like groupies, where you have these Hollywood actors, there's the people around them hoping to take off some of their success. That's what's going to happen. Why? Because what the Jew will have access to is the divine presence. That's what it is. Every Jew will be a prophet. Every one. So the divine presence, like it says, I will dwell in their midst, right? The divine presence will be within the Jew. So if you walk over to the Jew, you can feel God. But who doesn't want that? That feeling is the greatest of all feelings, infinitely greater than heroin. You know what I'm saying? So that's why every guy is going to run after the Jews. Let me have some of this, you see. And that's why all the guys are going to realize, wait a minute, you guys are going to get this forever? You got to be part of this. And we're going to be gone? It's over with. You see? That's why everybody's going to go crazy. And this conversation, according to the Gemara, will really take place at the end of time, which makes sense. Because as soon as people realize what the story is, right, it's over with. So could you imagine all the evil people of today are going to beg the Jews to save them? Obama, Hillary. And I'm just trying to make it more real for you. Well, Biden is so lost, he doesn't even know what's happening anymore, right? He's not even bothered. He says, Messiah, who's he? And so on, all of these people are going to beg the Jews, let me have something of what you have. And not only that, you guys are going to have it eternally. We will be annihilated, and that's the end of it, see? So on, see? So we understand now that Gemara makes incredible sense. But more than that, you now understand what Sukkot is. It's all about a rededication to reinstitute the agreement, right? After Moshe Rabbeinu said no. So in a certain sense, God was forced to say, okay, what's permanent now is the Jewish people in the form of the 12 tribes. Or no longer take a Jew and make him the Jewish people out of him, So that's a tremendous simcha. See, so when you enter a sukkah, you gotta have a smile on your face. Because you walk into something which has never happened before. Remember, by Adam Rishon, mankind was guaranteed to survive. Not the Jews. I mean, there were no Jews. You see? And even by Avraham Avinu, you see, until Moshe Rabbeinu came along, put it back for all Jews and so on. That's what the Sukkah really is. That's why Sukkah has this incredible amount of joy, you see. And that's why we now realize what Simchas Torah is. You are dancing with the Torah of the Messiah. That's really what you're doing, you see. Messianic Torah and so on. That's why it takes place on God's signature. That's His, right? And that's why the Shmini Atzeres is not Sukkot. It's a different holiday. It's amazing. That's why it doesn't have any. It has only one sacrifice, not a whole bunch of them, and so on. And you make a Shechionu, so it's its own holiday and so on. You see, and that's ultimately what we'll have. So what we're looking at is a tremendous possibility. Sukkot is messianic. It has all the earmarks of the guarantee, and so on. It has all the mitzvahs. Like I say, even in the end, it has the messianic Torah that everybody dances with. You see, so we have to hope that this Sukkot is the last Sukkot before Mashiach. That the joy that you witness now, will be incomparable to the joy when the Mashiach comes and does away with all these Rishonim. It's just incredible how many evil people there are in this world. There are some good people also, but most people, if you think about it, even if they're not evil in that way, that they do harm to others, that's really bad. And there are people who want to destroy others. They're the worst. Then there are people who harm other people. Oh, destroy the guy. Okay, so he's going to get shaken up. Who cares? There are so many people that are narcissists. They love themselves, right? They're not interested in anybody else. You see, there's so many, I don't know if I'd call them evil, but there's so many rotten people out there, Fortunately, there are people who are very good, who really care about the welfare of others, chesed, and so on. And you do find that. But Goyim also have their chesed institutes. So in the end, they will be rewarded. Doesn't make a difference even if they're Goy. They can't do tikkun with it. That's the difference. When a Jew does a mitzvah, he brings God closer. When a Goy does a mitzvah, it increases his luck, his mazel. But it doesn't bring God closer unless he becomes Jewish. That's the way, the difference, see? And that's the main thing, is to do the tikkun, see? That's why in the end, even a Goy that will receive, right, a reward for what he did, has to go to a Jew to get the reward. He has to take off something from the Jew, some aspect of his kedusha. Then he also has it, But other than that, nothing. It's like they say. Imagine, how has the mashal, if a Jew is going to drink water, some of the drops that he's drinking falls back into the pond or whatever. Then somebody else is drinking out that water from that pond. He says, wow, what drink of water. Because he's experienced the Shekhinah from that drop that fell from the Jew's mouth back into the pond. You don't even know what Kedusha a Jew will have once the Mashiach comes. You see? And that's basically what we're all waiting for and so on, So the holiday that clearly demonstrates this, all the mitzvahs, you see, and accentuates these ideas, sukkahs. You see? So when you walk into a sukkah, right, you look around and you say, wow, it's incredible. I'm free. I will always exist and always be under the shadow of God. That's really what the sukkah is. Schach. In fact, the gematria of sukkah, 91, it's the same gematria as Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the divine name, plus Elokim. Those two add up to 91. That's really the Shekhinah is represented by the roof of the schach. That's why the main part of the sukkah is the schach, so and therefore that's what sukkah is really all about. There are other questions, but once you understand the theme, you realize how they're all answered. It's great. So now you have a handle, as they say, on what really is going on. Any questions?
A zillion.
Huh?
A lot.
Oh, you said a zillion.
Yeah. Okay, so you forgot to mention
I think we're going to need an eternity.
Yeah, right? Mishpoch Judgment.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah.
You're great, Amy. Mishpoch Judgment. What's Mishpoch Judgment all about? And why was it accompanied with such unbelievable joy? The answer is that Mishpoch Judgment, that Mayim, water, represents the Torah. Water is a universal solvent. Torah is a universal solvent. That Mishpoch Judgment represents the power or the force of the Spirit that is poured down in the Mizbeach. That's what it represents. So we are actually witnessing what's called the Shefa, the divine flow. That water, which they took and they poured it into the Mizbeach. See, that represents the divine flow that comes down. And on the Mizbeach, because ultimately everybody's forgiven. You see, it's like God says, all of you will stand in front of me, Toho, pure. I will forgive all your sins. See, so that's why it's like they say one of the prophets, I think it was Yonah. Yonah was a regular guy, whatever, and he danced at the time of the Beis HaShoeva, where they drew the water. They said that's how he got Ruach HaKodesh. Became a Novi from that. Because that was the incredible flow of the divine power, the spheres. So that's what the Mishpoch Judgment is. And it makes sense, because this is all part of the agreement. You do yours, and I will give you mine, which is the Mishpoch Judgment. See?
Got it.
When you say Shemini Aseret and Torah, Hashem's signature to us, but in Israel, they don't really have the same days like we do.
No, they have Shemini Aseret, the 8th day.
Right.
We have an extra day. No, they do. They have it on the 8th day.
It's combined.
Combined.
Do they get the same effect?
Same thing. Yeah. We have an extra day because in those days they didn't know which day was Yom Tov. Because the first day of the month was based on the observation of the moon. See? So we do 2 days. So we can afford to have it on the second day. They do it 1 day, so they have it on that day. But in both cases, it's a separate holiday. 8th day.
Okay, so then why wouldn't we sit in the Sukkah on that day?
Because I told you the Sukkah is our deal. It's our signature, not his.
But but once he signs it, isn't it a combination?
No. Oh, well.
Isn't it like a union? Once he signs it, then you're married. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, once you both sign a contract, then you're married to the
contract. But we
contract.
don't sit in the Sukkah because that's our avodah, not his. His signatures he signs, right? That's Shemini Atzeres,
right?
And that's it. And he gives us what we're supposed to have, which is the Messianic light. That's his part of the bargain. Our part of the thing is what? To do the Lulav and Esrog and so on, and to sit. So we acknowledge that on Hogas Yichud. But that's not part of what he does.
So that, I think someone said once that we do, after Mashiach, we still keep Sukkot. Yes?
We keep Purim.
Or we keep Purim.
Yeah.
So the Messianic Torah, then, isn't it the Torah that eventually Hashem will explain all the secrets to us?
Everything, yeah, correct.
So that's what we're dancing with? Like, we're hoping that we...
Well, the Messianic Torah, right, it's like an iceberg, right? 1/10 is above the water, 9/10 are below, right? So our Torah is 1/10 above the water. But really, the Torah and all the Kabbalah in the Torah, right, is way below that. And that's what we do. The truth is, we cannot in any way comprehend the Torah of the Mashiach. In fact, I spoke about this when I told this year what happens with the third Beis Hamikdash. Remember that? With the level of Shekhinah, the level of Shekhinah is on the level of Yetzirah that comes down and pervades the planet, if you recall that year. I gave it 3 weeks ago.
Repeat it?
What's that?
You know what?
Remember I said, what is the third Beis Hamikdash? it's really the Beis Hamikdash in heaven that actually becomes physical and descends to earth. So the level of divine presence in there, in heaven, actually now comes here, and we experience that level of Shekhinah in heaven. So we can't comprehend that. That's what it means the earth will be filled with the knowledge of God, like the waters covers the seabed. Imagine what the oceans look like. Imagine how much Torah there will be. Yeah, and because we're getting the Shekhinah not at this level, at that level. Unheard of. I mean, it's pure supernatural. This is like, it's like...
So, Rabbi,
you had a question? You were asking?
Yeah, is that from the Torah?
Yes. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, it says in the Torah. Esroi, Priye Toda, Arve Nochal, and so on. It actually, it says the four species, Although they're very general, and it's from the oral law that we know what specifically they refer to. That's still the Torah, the oral law. Yeah.
So are the Ushpizim, they're like 18, but only one comes every night. So who's the second? Is it Hashem?
Oh, no, it's not. It's not that they. No, it's not because of Adam. It's because they're part of the whole contract. They did it. I mean, So let's say the main principles. You know what I'm saying? It's like you buy a company. So the ones who got to come to the signing is the president and the vice president. These guys who run the whole company. But what's interesting is even Yosef comes and David, because Mashiach and Yosef, Mashiach and David, they are part of the Ushpizim. And that's interesting. See? God didn't left them out. So you have all the major principles. Right?
So didn't they say in Cheta Egel the women weren't involved in it? And the clouds of glory didn't leave the women. One of the Mepharshim said that they didn't leave the women. The women still had that experience with the clouds of glory. So technically, is that why women don't have to sit in the sukkah? I know we're not bound by time, but is that really also another reason why? Because we didn't do this in, so we always had the clouds of glory. So we didn't have the returning of the clouds of glory, we still had it.
Yeah, but you have to remember one thing. The one who really does most of the mitzvahs are men.
Right.
So the women's mazel is in many ways connected to the man. So it's a team effort.
Got it.
So it's like a baseball team.
Right.
You have a couple of players that are not doing well, the whole team suffers. It's not that they're not an independent team. They're all part of the same, they're all working to the same goal. Mm-hmm. So that goal is damaged. So then all the players are harmed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Got it. So then, did he say also that Mashiach is gonna appear on Hoshana Rabbah? Did he see that?
On Hoshana Rabbah? No.
Or Shmini Atzeret maybe it was. Yeah, one of them. They say that's when he's gonna appear.
Well, you never know what appear means.
Right.
Appear does not. Exactly. There are many ways of appearing,
So wouldn't that make sense since it's Yosef or David, like on their days?
Could. It certainly would make sense. Then in the Shpizim of Yosef, Shiur from Yosef, and how he begins this process. Yeah. That would make sense. Yeah.
For sure that we're looking forward to it every single day.
Right.
Yeah, but someday,
Is any of this elevated somehow because maybe it's a Yovel year? Like the
Well, I that's why I spoke. I said we are watching, which is very interesting, gradual fall of evil. All these people that are incredibly evil is being recompensed, tremendous retribution. I mentioned this Cuomo, then with Biden, then with Ida, now with the guy Millen. I mean, it's like all of them are being exposed as unbelievable frauds. Whoever's an honest person looks at this, says, this is incredible. These are not people, they're animals. They're just animals. The way they relate to everybody else, what they're doing to the United States, they're animals. What Biden did to Afghanistan is beyond belief. It's the ultimate betrayal. How can a man do that to his own people or to people that were loyal to him? Not at all, it made no sense. All he had to do was keep 2,500 people in Bagram that they spent $1 billion to build. Now, what's really, think about this. There are 35 million Afghans that have been taken over by 75,000 Taliban. And are all butchers. Why? Where was the Rahmanis for 35 million people? And now they're all walking around with a death sentence on their head.
How about all the weapons that they left there, which is anywhere?
Of course.
Now they have it.
Yeah.
Russia wants to go
so you should know, if you don't read this, you can't believe that this actually happened. It's like incredulous to believe that the United States under Biden did this. It doesn't make sense. A 10-year-old kid would never have done what Biden did. So the real question is, what's wrong with the United States? Are they stupid? They actually have a guy that's a moron, that's completely lost, surrounded by a bunch of incompetents, leading the United States, and everybody's laughing their head off. I heard that Biden gave a with what's his name in England? What's his name? Who's the Prime Minister?
Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson, yeah. So Biden couldn't take any questions, so they stopped Johnson from taking questions. Biden can't take questions.
That was embarrassing, but it was because it started with Naftali Bennett when he was talking to President Biden, and Biden was falling asleep as Bennett was talking, and they caught it on camera. So then they saw that Biden was starting to fall asleep while Johnson was talking. So then they had to, in the middle of the sentence.
Yeah, this is a president who's in charge of the greatest, because he's, half the time he's probably walking around in his pajamas in the White House, ready to go to bed. Yeah, that's what he is. He's, he looks like he's tired in the middle of the day.
You should go back. You need to go back.
Yeah, I don't think. Could you imagine if you had in Wall Street? Imagine if you had a company where the CEO was like Biden. They'd throw him out. Why? Because there's money. Guys have destroy the company. He's destroying the United States single-handedly. Well, I should say with everybody else. It's incredible. You mean there's no way to throw this guy out, including Kamala Harris? No, but where's the United States? The guy still got a 43% approval rating. 43. Are they crazy, those 43%? Their country's being destroyed under their noses.
That's why they're
what?
So crazy. Look at how many liberal Jews have voted for AOC and Tlaib and Elon.
People don't speak English.
They just took out our funding for the Iron Dome. But
yeah.
We have to send aid to the Palestinians who are throwing the bombs at us.
And
it defies.
Weapons for that reason.
All of this defies logic. Really does.
Everything is
yeah.
just upside down.
Yeah. It's like, it's an Alice in Wonderland scenario.
And Rabbi,
the Queen of Hearts.
Now
it's crazy. You off your head, but why did you off with your head and off with your head? Remember that? Yeah. That's what it is. It's an irrational, psychotic government. And everybody doesn't care. 43% still voted for this guy, still approve of him.
So now the unvaccinated can't even leave the state. We feel that not only is there a divide, it doesn't matter, half the country now can't leave the United States.
Why? Because they're not vaccinated?
Because it's vaccinated. Now you have to be vaccinated to go on a plane.
Biden told the president of Brazil that he's not welcome to come to the UN because he's not vaccinated.
Yeah, but he had COVID. Why does that have to be
That's
vaccinated?
what he told him.
That's what he answered, and then he said, and excuse me, but in New York, it's only for gyms and restaurants. I'm doing my job in the UN, and I'm coming, and he just vetoed it.
No, he can't.
That he's like a Republican,
Yeah,
Brazilian.
conservative.
But it's all the Latin countries, even the Mexican one, and even in like Haiti, they all are against the vaccine. The Latin countries are not pro, but it's all the higher up first world countries that are.
Yeah, all of this you should know. When the country is so divided, the real threat is a civil war. This is what it takes to make a civil war. A tremendous division in the country. That's what it takes, and you never know. Biden, all that too.
Already said that they're willing to fight against Biden because half of the black population is not vaccinated, so they're so now they want to march against the.
He's going to destroy all the blacks.
In a restaurant in Manhattan, but last week there was a black family that wanted to go to eat and they didn't have vaccines.
Yeah.
They started beating up the host that wouldn't let them into the restaurant.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's really
wonderful. No, that's how a civil war starts.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's wonderful healthcare workers that are not vaccinated, that are either losing their jobs, being forced to vaccinate.
Yes.
It's still part of all the vaccines and all this thing. Hashem is using the vaccines to do what exactly?
Well, I mean, look, it's
originally we thought it was to help the people who needed it, but now what? What is the vaccines for now? What is the divine Hashkafa for it? What is this whole process?
I believe what it is destroying the unity of America.
Not only America, the whole world. A virus is a virus.
It's creating tremendous friction, division in the world. Yeah, right. That's what they deserve. Because they've corrupted civilization. They're like Sodom and Gomorrah. I once told them they're changing the name of the USA, not United States of America. It's United Sodomites of America. That's what it is. That's why. And God will not tolerate this type of abuse. Because that's the end of, kind of this stuff. It's the end of normal marriage and so on. It's ridiculous.
How long?
What? Rabbi, you should see what they're teaching kids. He was saying, you cannot believe the parents are crying. This education that they give self, Rabbi, self.
It is self.
They made them.
They're making them write these horrific
essays. They're saying write an essay that you would not want your parents to see, and it has to be of immorality kind of nature.
Yeah. They were teaching kindergartners about immorality on themselves.
Write it down in an essay.
What they should do to themselves.
In a cartoon, they would put on a thing. This is what you do, and this is what you can do, and this is all in picture form. In the cartoon.
You know what doesn't make sense? This is illegal. You can't. You want to. If you have a public school, you can only transmit the values of the country in the sense that these are traditional values. You can't just put down what you think is right. Who cares what you think? So what's happening is, I heard there's like many people taking their kids out of school, homeschooling. Yeah.
I actually agree with it 100%.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It's like they're embedding the children into this system. It's all these systems that we need to bring, the education system, the medical system. All these systems are.
Yeah.
We're victims of it.
It's the whole society really changed. I was looking at just headlines, and then there was one picture, and it said everybody for some sort of like Hollywood event. I don't know, like they were gonna.
Met Gala.
Everyone was wearing like the lights, like crystal.
Yes, see-through.
Every single person.
Was basically they had this big affair in the city. It's called the Gala.
Yeah.
And all the celebrities were there, and they have big red carpet, and they take photos. It's all over the magazines, and But half of them are literally naked. They're wearing like net, like a netting.
One was wearing, the one that I saw was just wearing crystal necklaces. It was so disgusting.
It's like satanic. They just.
But then how Hashem worked that night, it was the most hugest rainfall that came out of nowhere.
Oh my God, you have no idea.
Hashem needed to clean up and wipe the crap.
Yes.
It was and it was not supposed to rain, but Hashem was like so gross by this behavior that out of nowhere there was a mabul midnight, like late at night after the fair, and it was like out of nowhere. It had to like walk away.
Flooding everywhere.
It's called mini marble.
A mini marble. Exactly.
Well, that's what Ida was.
So isn't it
anyway.
like when the Mashiach Ben Yosef comes, he's going to reveal a lot of truth. Do you think a lot of the things that we still don't know, like about the government, about the medical, all that's going to be revealed to our eyes, sure. Like the truth of it? Is that a part of his?
Yes, because he's got to put a stop to it. Yeah, sure. Then you can see how corrupt the world really is. One thing you know is that this world is headed to a downward spiral. You see that? There's no way to stop it. You see? And we are too close to the 6,000 year in order to historically to stop. So we know that itself tells you that we are right next to the end, because you can't stop it. You see? So what's the point? So God is saying enough is enough. You've now entered a death spiral. You're going down, down, down. I have to stop it. Look, the whole concept of LGBTQ+, they're finished. They're destroying everybody. And it's a downward spiral because it's now constitutionally recognized. So it's over with. I have a convention to overturn this. So what's God going to do? Just look at the world getting worse and worse? You remember what I told you about the window? This is the window. You're looking at the window closing. I told you it's going to go down to 1 nanometer, right? That's all the light that's going to come through. It's that 1 nanometer, right, of light, truth, and whatever. And the window is going to try to shut, which would wipe out the entire universe. That's the Kiddush of the spheres. So as soon as it's about to shut, in the second before, the gates open on the Mashiach, and the whole world is flooded with that oil. And then the window shuts. It's too late. It's just because all the gates are open. You are looking at the window closing. You'd never believe if somebody told you this a year ago what the United States would look like, you'd never believe it. It's impossible. What?
I believe that news reading that wrote the book of years ago.
No, but the corruption, the degradation, you would never believe this. How could Biden have done this in 8 months? He ought to get the Guinness.
The Christians, people all over, like everybody hates the world now. They just no one feels safe.
Yes,
no one knows what to do.
There's nowhere to go. It's not like it's happening here and not here. You could move there, but no
one knows
everywhere.
where to go. There's no place safe.
There's nowhere to hide.
No, there's nowhere to go.
Yep, that's the windows closing.
Yeah, and that's also Hashem saying there's nowhere for you to go.
No.
Only Hashem.
So we should just stay here?
That's right. Yeah, where are you going to go? You have to, you have to surround yourself like a fortress. You just don't let it penetrate into your own life.
What if it becomes communist?
I don't believe it'll become communist. No.
Really?
No. I don't believe that. But communism, as bad as it is, this depravity is much worse. And this is okay in capitalism. There's colleges that you cannot say he or she or him or her. Yeah.
They ask you what you want to call it.
What do you want to call it? It's full of fraud.
And Pelosi yesterday said that capitalism isn't good for the country.
She's a nitwit.
It's in every headline.
Yeah, the Pelosi's a retarded individual. They're all, he's a moron. Pelosi, these are very, these are flawed humans. And God has given them the ability to rule. That's what he's done. Saying, I'm going to allow these people to rule over all of you, because this is what you deserve. You want to destroy my world? I will destroy your country. That's exactly what's happening. It's Mida Keneged Mida, measure for measure. This is what America deserves. They don't like to think of themselves that way. We, America? No. You are debased, depraved, and which is terrible, It's just tragic to watch what America has done, the good stuff it's done for so many years, and that this is allowed to happen.
Yeah, look at Israel. Israel's even worse than us.
Yeah.
Worse than us.
They've become so
what,
Rabbi?
Why would he do
They
that to
turn
his
the
own
country
people?
into
They're a
a
problem. Then they're allowed to rule. This is the end, where all the evil is allowed to rule. It's like the last gasp, where they say, okay, give me one shot at it, This is their last, as they say, this is the last Ra, right?
Ra, without the cover.
Hora is the last Ra, pun intended. That's what it is, yeah. And we know that's what happens in the end,
Wow.
Yeah.
But people say that they felt this way during the Holocaust.
Yeah. Well, this is very similar to 1935, 36, the slow shift to totalitarianism.
When did it start? When did it start killing? When did he start?
Well, he wrote his book, Mein Kampf, in 1923. Long time. But he was voted in 1933. That's when he got into power, and that was it. From there, it's all downhill, because he was in power. He became the chancellor, But this is the problem,
Very bad and very good.
Yeah, I spoke about that. What that means, really, I explained that, But obviously, it's coming in very bad.
Unless we get Trump again, that will be sorry.
I believe we will.
Either Trump or DeSantis.
Because God does not want to destroy America. He won't do that. So what he's going to do, this is like the interlude.
Right.
Okay, let them have their, as they say, fling. Then he's going to...
And let a few people wake up a little.
And I hope Trump
gets
smart.
No.
And he doesn't allow this to happen. Because like I say, he made a terrible mistake. He underestimated viciousness, single-mindedness of evil to destroy him.
I think also because you can't touch somebody or her husband. You can't touch them. Except when you touch them, they could bring everybody down, the whole government.
Well, they probably know a lot of information.
That's what I'm saying. That's why he didn't do it. I don't think he was dying to do it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You never know, maybe you're right.
How many times did he say that he wanted to get them?
That he could.
In fact, he promised.
Yeah.
When you're having the debate with Hillary.
I think he just can't because
Well,
the whole government is shut down.
it's rotten. It's ruined to it.
Because they threaten that people in your family, why we've lost all these people that came forward and testified about things, why people suddenly disappear.
Suddenly died.
Suddenly.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.